Hello everyone, and welcome to Galaxy 89 Cars. Now today I'm at Goodwood, the home of Rolls-Royce, and I've been given the key to a Rolls-Royce Wraith black badge. Now originally I planned to do the intro for this video outside because it's a really nice courtyard, but as you can probably see, the weather has taken a bit of a turn for the worst. So I'm inside the car, which is not exactly a bad place to be. Anyway, I can't believe my luck either. I've been given the key to a Wraith black badge for the next 4 days, and in that time I have a few kind of interesting things to do. One of them, of course, is to film an in-depth tour, which will be out, in a few weeks' time. But I'm going to shoot another video as well. So with the vlog style video, there are going to be two main components. The first is looking at the Wraith name and where that sits within Rolls-Royce's history. Secondly, I'm going to look at the coupe and fastback body styles also within the history of Rolls-Royce. So as I've already said, this is the home of Rolls-Royce. The factory is just over there where they make the cars. They present the cars just over there in the studio, and they're designed in the Atelier suite. And going, having a tour around these areas have really inspired me and shown me what an amazing brand Rolls-Royce is. So for the kind of point 2 side to the vlog, I'm going to kind of see what do the public think about Rolls-Royce? What's the general opinion about this brand? And then after that, I'm going to present what a contemporary Rolls-Royce actually means. But before we do any of that, I think it's time to hit the road. Now this may be a little bit too noisy because I'm right by a road, but there's literally nowhere else better to start than this. I finally reached my first destination, which is P&A Wood, Rolls-Royce in Essex. Now the reason I've come here specifically is because they have two showrooms. The one behind me here focuses more on modern contemporary Rolls-Royce. You can sort of spec your own model up. And they have this showroom over here, which focuses more on the heritage cars. Now they have some exceptionally rare models, which we're going to see in a minute just over here. But more than that, they have a couple of cars that are going to help me tell kind of the tale of where the Wraith name started, and also where the sort of coupe fastback body style started within Rolls-Royce. So I'm going to have to ask for one favour from everyone watching this video, and that's to excuse my ignorance of older cars. Now there's going to be some exceptional models that we're going to look at, and I'm not really going to be able to appreciate them as much as I maybe should. But nevertheless, I'm going to try. Right, so automatically we have to go from being very loud on the street to being exceptionally quiet in here. Now I'm going to look at this just briefly. This is a very special car. We can see all the information here. This is the actual car that took part in the 1911 London to Edinburgh run. For a fact, the car is exceptionally old, well over 100 years, and yet it's in such perfect condition. It's astonishing. Now, of course, this isn't necessarily going to help tell the tale of the Wraith. There's one more I want to show you before we go to where the two cars are that can help. And this is also a very special car. But when you think about it, every single thing in here. So the Rolls-Royce enthusiasts watching this video will know far more than I will. I think it's time that we walked up the slight hill and started our journey into the history of the Wraith. So undoubtedly there are some very serious cars in that showroom. A 1911 actual car that has so much history and so much prestige. It's going to be worth a hell of a lot of money, and it's the only one of its kind because it's that car. It's not just like cars that have had loads of variants made of it at all. We're going to take a look at two cars that can kind of help work out where it all came from. So within Rolls-Royce, the Wraith name really begins pre-Second World War. Unfortunately, because of the onset of the Second World War, the first version of the Wraith had to go out of production. It really went out of production in 1938-39, but there were still some models that kind of filtered through into 1940. Unfortunately, because its production was cut short, only 491 models were made. So that makes that car, even in 1940, rarer than like a LaFerrari or something. So you can imagine that there really aren't really many around anymore. I certainly couldn't find any that were accessible to film, which is a shame, because it's the first car that really held the name Wraith in Rolls-Royce. So let's jump to 1946. We're post-Second World War now, and Rolls-Royce have decided to use the Wraith name once again, but this time the car is called the Silver Wraith. And actually I found one here at P&A Wood. So this is slightly later, this is a 1958 Silver Wraith. And even though it's not what Rolls-Royce class as a full-length or a full-size car, it's still a sizable vehicle. This is their, I think what it's known as, a 25-30 horsepower car. They had a slightly bigger one as well at the time. And as we can already see, even though it kind of has this very short rear here, it's certainly not a fastback. And it's not even a coupe. We can see it has 4 doors. So it's most certainly a traditional Rolls-Royce in that sense that it has a sort of limousine size to it. And even the first Wraith, the 1938 car, it was a smaller iteration of this, it was a smaller version, but it was still kind of the same car. There are 1 or 2 sort of one-off models that were made of this car that were coupe version, but by far the most were these 4-door limousine versions. Now the Silver Wraith started production in 1946, and this one is a 1958 car, so the production run was actually quite long for this model. We have to jump to 1964 to find a kind of car that's maybe, in character at least, more comparable to a modern Wraith, and that's the one we have here. This is a 1964 Silver Cloud 3. The full 4-door saloon variant was the largest car in the Rolls-Royce lineup at the time, and although this specific car is probably more closely related to a modern Phantom Coupe or Dawn, it does share some of the spirit and purpose of a modern Wraith. Coupe body style, reduced weight over the saloon, and increased power. With these 2 cars together, I thought it was a nice opportunity to see how Rolls-Royce design language had developed from 1946 to 58 to 1964. The grille is wider in the Silver Cloud, but not as tall. The front, flowing wheel arches become more integrated, and at the rear, they disappear entirely. The iconic coach lining remains, but becomes more simplistic, as does the fuel tank flaps. The interior became slightly more modern, but stayed true to the traditional wooden inlays and leather upholstery that Rolls-Royce is known for. So far with this car, we're in 1964, but we have to go back in time to 1951, where a customer bought a Silver Dawn and then had it rebodied by Pininfarina. And if I can maybe overlay an image over this, it actually embodies the pure fastback body style. Now that didn't emerge again until the new Wraith, which we can take a look at now. From 1964 on the Silver Cloud 3, we can jump all the way to 2013. Now, of course, the Wraith I'm driving, which is just over here, this car here, is a black badge, and we'll get to that in a second. What I want to do is run through some of the key specs of this car, which is a standard Wraith, first. First unveiled in 2013, the Wraith is hailed by many as one of the most important cars in the current Rolls-Royce lineup. This ultra-luxury GT is Rolls-Royce's most powerful car ever, and is seen as a revelation for the brand. It breaks away from the conventional saloons and coupes that Rolls-Royce are so well known for, and brings the fastback body shape out from one-off creations and into the production line, which is exactly why I've been focusing on this element so much. It is powered by a twin-turbo V12 that produces 624 brake horsepower and 820 Nm of torque, which can propel the car from 0 to 62 mph or 100 km/h in 4.6 seconds, and has a limited top speed of 155 mph. Impressive considering the car's weight and length. Later, Rolls-Royce introduced their high-spec, more powerful Black Badge line that extends to the Ghost and Dawn. The Black Badge Wraith's BHP stays the same, but torque is increased by 50 Nm to 870 Nm, which results in a decrease in the car's 0 to 62 mph time by 1/10 to 4.5 seconds. With the cars together, we can look at the main aesthetic differences. You can of course spec your Wraith however you wish, but the Black Badge line is more of a preset aiming to appeal to a younger audience. The standard chrome grille and Spirit of Ecstasy have been turned black. 21-inch 7-spoke alloy wheels are one option that can be chosen for the standard Wraith, but the black badge has 21-inch, 23-layer carbon fibre composite wheels. Stainless steel strips found around the windows and at the rear are also stripped of their bright, reflective qualities in the black badge. Now moving inside. All the same major components are found in each car, and a standard Wraith can be spec'd like the black badge, but most follow the more traditional style seen here, with light leather and wooden inlays, as opposed to the brightly coloured leather and carbon inlays found in the black badge. There are also infinity black badge symbols found in several locations in the car I'm driving. So I hope that gives you a really good idea where the Wraith name first started, and also the coupe fastback body style. So I want to say a huge thank you to P&A Wood for hosting me today. They've got a fantastic selection of cars. If you want to know any more about the services they offer or the car they currently have for sale, please check the description of the video. However, this video is not finished yet. I still need to move on to the second part, which is kind of exploring more about what a contemporary Rolls-Royce actually is. But in some ways, we've kind of already done that. The Wraith Black Badge really personifies exactly what a modern day Rolls-Royce stands for, but I still think it's worth going into it in a little bit more depth. So now you join me back in the car, but now we're on day 4 out of 4. So what happened to days 2 and 3? Well, of course, on day 1, I was driving loads and vlogging, as you've seen. The second day, I have to say, from the moment I got back on Friday night, which was day 1, until literally Sunday morning, which was yesterday, I was actually rather ill. As I say, I had a bad stomach, so we'll leave it at that. Plus, the weather this weekend has been absolutely awful. I mean, the UK has had sustained, really hot, sunny weather for the last literally 5 weeks. And the one weekend I get an absolutely amazing car to film with, the weather is horrible, as I'm sure you've seen throughout. Yesterday, Sunday, which was day 3, I felt a little bit better, but so I tried to go out and fulfill the part of my video where I wanted to kind of gain more of a general public insight about what they feel Rolls-Royce stands for, if they feel it's a conservative brand, an old-fashioned brand, whether it's a flexible brand, a contemporary brand. To do this, I went to a local car show. Now, it's somewhere I've been loads of times before, the legendary Brooklands racing circuit, and they've got a sort of a historic automotive and aeronautical display there as well. There was like a classic car show going on, and there was some quite nice, really vintage automobiles. So I thought it'd be a nice place to sort of garner some opinions, some viewpoints. But once again, the weather was horrible, and all of the footage that I did record, the audio is too poor just because it was so windy. It was raining, and just there wasn't a great turnout, in all honesty, just because of the weather. So, and of course, now that I'm returning the car, we've got beautiful kind of patchy blue skies above, and it's fairly warm, so that's just the way of things. But the reason why I wanted to discuss and kind of sort of gauge an opinion for what Rolls-Royce stands for in the public eye is because when I was at the factory filming with the Phantom 8 a couple of weeks ago, I found out so much about the brand that I didn't know, and what I imagined is that the public may think that, you know, while Rolls-Royce is still producing cars, you know, they may still be, you know, just all clad in wood and sort of an old-fashioned, very traditional brand. And while that remains to be the case in some respects, actually, generally speaking, Rolls-Royce is a really contemporary brand. They're really future-focused. Their mind is in the present and moving forward. And that's reflected in all of the technologies that they use to build the cars, the materials, and their whole kind of philosophy at Goodwood. So what do I mean by that? Well, Rolls-Royce is stepping away from the kind of mainstream competitors that it might have in terms of high-level production, and what their sort of aim is now is to have low-level production. So, you know, only, you know, a few thousand a year really, but then each one of their cars is going to be, of course, in basis it's an automobile, but they kind of want to have a closer association to like luxury items. So it's really the difference between jewellery and fine jewellery. You can have, let's just say, this is me saying this, is not Rolls-Royce saying this, so you can have like an S-Class, really high-spec S63. That's, you know, jewellery. It's a fantastic car, packed full of technology. But then a Wraith, for example, is the fine jewellery. It's the rarer, more expensive option. And with that, really what you find at Rolls-Royce is that you can choose whatever you want. I mean, you can have whatever color leather you want. You don't even have to have leather. You can have, a silk finish, or you can have a crocodile, or, something completely different. You can have, at least with the Phantom in the gallery area that I showed you in my last video, that can be spec'd in anything you want. I mean, you can have a custom design with custom materials laid out in that. It's not a problem. Of course, you have to foot the bill for it, but I mean, ultimately, it's Rolls-Royce is not some stuffy old conservative brand. They're really like customer and future focused. So the customer comes in and they have almost any request, of course, as long as it's legal, Rolls-Royce are going to do their utmost to fulfill it. And this is seen with the level of embroideries that you can have, and the different types of embroidery and embossing, and the logos and different types of wood and carbon fiber, all these, huge array of different materials that can be used. And it's not just, you can have the seat finished in one color. You can pick the bolstering on the sides of the seats as well. You can pick the back, and you can have your own logo, in the back of the headrest anywhere. And even on the sills, you can have custom sills. At the rear, you can have custom different kits fitted, fishing kits, hunting kits, drinking kits, anything you want. To kind of round this video out a little bit, I realized in previous videos I do kind of talk a little bit, maybe too much. So I'm going to present now 5 things I love and 5 things that I dislike, because I don't really hate anything about this car. So actually, I think I'll do the 5 things I dislike first. So the first is the brakes. Now, they're absolutely massive ventilated discs, and they stop the car sufficiently, but from the last few hundred miles I've driven, you get a little bit worried at certain points, because they feel, of course, Rolls-Royce want everything in this car to be kind of soft and smooth. Undoubtedly that's the case with Rolls-Royce, but this is a heavy car. It's like 2.4 tons, and it's a very powerful model. I mean, it can get to 0 to 60 2 miles per hour in 4.4 seconds or something like that. While the brakes, I'm sure, have had some kind of improvements over the standard Wraith, I think it might be beneficial to have a carbon ceramic option, although a carbon ceramic disc will probably be too kind of grippy. It will kind of be too jerky, and that's kind of in opposition to what sort of Rolls-Royce want in every aspect of their cars. So another thing that I dislike. So I love and hate this. Now, like the first 30 degrees of turn that you have in the wheel is very direct and very easy, but then it kind of gets a bit understeery after that. Now, you think, because you've got so much sort of direct control, when you first begin to turn the wheel, that's going to continue throughout the entire evolution, but it doesn't. It kind of fades off a bit. So if you're going around a large roundabout, for example, you can, you have to keep turning and keep turning and keep turning, and it's not unnerving or difficult or anything. I mean, it's a very minor thing, because the steering feel in this is absolutely lovely, in all honesty. But it's just something that's a little bit strange, that you have it's so direct to begin with, but then it just fades off. Something else that's I'm not favourable towards, let's just say. Of course, this is a twin-turbo V12, and in all honesty, there is actually a bit of turbo lag. It's not such a huge deal, because even though we're in the Black Badge Wraith, and this is meant to be the sportier, more performance model, you're still not really getting it for that purpose. So it's not a huge deal, but when you put your foot down, there's a few seconds before it builds up, and then it literally it's exceptionally fast after that. The next thing probably has to be the fuel efficiency. Now, that's unavoidable, because to be able to make this car as powerful as it is, and as have as effortless performance as it has, you need a very large powertrain. Now, unfortunately, a downside of that is that I've been getting, I drive in a quite frugal manner, in all honesty. I was only able to get 21.2 miles to the gallon. That's the most. I'm currently on 19.5 miles to the gallon. I'm still driving on kind of motorway type roads. Now, the last thing I'm going to bring up is something that I basically don't love, is the infotainment system. Now, it's based on the BMW iDrive system, but of course it's got the brand new Rolls-Royce user interface, and it's very crisp. It's very good to use through the central console down here. I was in Essex, so it's north of London, if those of you don't know, filming on Friday, and my phone was dying and I didn't have my cable with me. So I wanted to use the car's sat-nav to navigate back home. And, well, first of all, it's not difficult to use, through the center console and everything. You can put your destination in very easily, and then it's very quick and responsive, the way it kind of snaps to it and locates it. But the screen isn't touchscreen. So the sat-nav first came up and it was inverted. Maybe there's a way to rectify that with just the center console. But the fact that it's not touchscreen means that you can't like flip it around and pinch in and out easily. And of course you can zoom in and out by scrolling with the center controller down here, and that's fine. But there's something to it if you just reach out and just sort of, you're kind of used to that on premium cars, you know. Most other premium manufacturers have that ability. Maybe that's a feature here and I just haven't worked it out. And if that's the case, then I retract what I say right now. Now I've got the complaints out of the way, if you can call those complaints, I can focus on the things that I absolutely love. And I have to say that other than my Porsche, believe it or not, and I should probably make a video about how much I love my car, this has blown me away. Now, previously before this, I had never had any extended time with the Rolls-Royce. I have driven cars kind of in this category, but I think this really stands out on its own. It doesn't really have a competitor. Even something like an S65 probably doesn't compare to this whatsoever. Now, the leather is incredibly soft, and it comes from a farm in Bavaria, Germany, and I think it's prepared especially for Rolls-Royce. It's made solely from male cows because it has less stretching, so you have a smoother leather and you can use more of it. It's the same diameter thickness pretty much all the way through because there's no stretching, there's less lines and things. The seats are so comfortable, and they give you great support both laterally and in terms of the lumbar. You know, that's kind of a rare thing to find in any car. You know, of course it's incredibly well equipped. The seats, as well as being very comfortable, offer heating and ventilation. The steering wheel is superb. It's not this huge yacht wheel you'd find in maybe another type of Rolls-Royce. It's almost like a sport design type wheel. It's very rigid, and the leather's very soft, but it feels fantastic to hold at the positions of 9 and 3. And although I kind of complained about this, the steering is also superb. You know, yes, it's direct to begin with, but then it kind of fades off. But for a car that's like 5.2 meters long, 2.4 tons in weight, the amount of maneuverability this car has is amazing. I mean, it's like, you know, it's a mechanical marvel in some ways that Rolls-Royce have been able to engineer a vehicle that performs this well, you know, that has this dimension. So that's definitely something that's very impressive. The acceleration is also staggering, once again taking those dimensions into consideration. I mean, after the turbo lag that I mentioned, the car really, you know, goes down and the front lifts up off the ground. It's an incredible experience. In other cars, you know, the components, they might be plastic but then coated in a sort of foil wrapping, but everything you see here is exactly what it's meant to be. I mean, it's made out of aluminium or stainless steel, and it's proper leather or carbon fiber. You know, no expense has been spared. Even with the dials ahead of me, they're individually, you know, created pieces of metal that move physically, not just digital dials. Of course, you do have that in the Phantom 8. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because in the Phantom 8 they're very crisp and beautiful. But it's just the components are, you know, exceptionally well made, and driving a Rolls-Royce is a very tactile experience because of that. So it's not just about, oh, you know, what's the driving experience like? It's on a whole new level. Going on to the experience, also the Starlight headliner. Now, once again, I've never had anything like that in a car. Now, during the day, you can't actually see it that well because the fiber optics, you know, they aren't sort of bright enough to see them in broad daylight or so. You can just kind of see them above, but they're not like, you know, as bright as they are in the evening, of course. Now, at night, if you can get them to the right light intensity level, it creates a level of ambience and atmosphere that I've never had in a car before. That mixed with the incredible sound system, you know, I think it's an 18 speaker system, have speakers everywhere. And it creates, it's not just a driving experience, but it's kind of like you're in a very fancy hotel on wheels that's very comfortable and very easy to drive. I mean, that's kind of the only thing I can compare it to, because, I mean, maybe it's just because I haven't driven enough cars, but there are no cars that I can really compare it to. So I'm going to bring up two more things that really stood out to me. Even though I complained about the lack of a touch-sensitive screen, the car is packed full of technology. So of course you have the DAB digital radio. It's exceptionally crisp and has a very good signal, although I have to admit it does sort of cut out infrequently. But because it's infrequently, it's not really a massive issue. But you have so many different options that you can choose from. And as well as all of that, you have cameras all over the car. I mean, there's one right at the front, one right at the back. There's one on each side at the front. There's one under each wing mirror, and there's one at the rear. And these provide the 3D reversing camera view that you get. Of course, it has a parking sensor array in the front and rear bumpers. And on top of all of that, it has a night vision camera. Now, I know that there are other manufacturers that have this as well, but the large, I think it's a 12.3 inch central screen, you know, with the night vision camera on, it's a pretty nice addition, actually. The final thing I want to bring up is just pure aesthetic. And there's so many other things I could talk about, but this is just a personal preference of mine. I love the long bonnet with the Spirit of Ecstasy at the front. It's just so awesome to see that up there. So having the almost sport design steering wheel that I'm gripping onto now that provides fairly direct steering at certain degrees. And then the double R's on the dials in front of me. And then moving up from that, the long bonnet, and then the Spirit of Ecstasy on the front. And you know that there's that masculine, you know, curved grille up ahead as well. It's just, to be honest, it's just awesome to see it. So before we sign off, I just want to say a huge thank you to the guys at Rolls-Royce Goodwood for the loaning of this car and also for the use of the Phantom. Hopefully there'll be even more Rolls-Royce content coming out of my channel very soon. Please leave a like if you've enjoyed the video. Please subscribe for the latest content. Until next time, thanks for watching.